Good afternoon. Welcome to another Kerfuffle showcase. Delighted to have Steve from InventoryBase on with us today. Steve, how are you? You well?
Very good, Simon. Thank you. And you?
Yeah, good. You were obviously having a pop at a chippy northerner earlier by showing off that the weather's fantastic down
by you. More than complimentary of how nice you guys up there up in Manchester.
Right, so somebody has to live beyond the walls, getting all Game of Thrones. But anyway,
I just apologise. I'm right on the south coast, the south and north.
Sickening. Anyway, it's all right. I get seasick just looking at a bathtub. So
at least we've got the sun more down here.
So, Steve, let's start with you. What's your background in the business? How did you get into property, and before you came to InventoryBase?
That's an interesting question. Actually, I'm not. I don't have any background at all in the property industry, funnily enough.
Great. That's all right.
So yeah, that actually, both helped and hurt the growth of the business. But I cut my teeth in programming and software.
Okay.
So don't let this fine exterior fool you. I'm very much a geek at heart. And so from the age of 12 years old, I was programming for various internet-related applications. I was really passionate about software. And fast forward to university, where we went into a computer science degree, and there I met my business partner, who we run the company today. So it can happen. You can find your career in university and find your business partner for life as well, which we did. We were fortunate enough to do that, and we started out really building, let's say, applications, websites, e-commerce, various things for various companies. And throughout that journey of being an agency, if you will, we came across a very niche industry, which was the sort of up and coming inventory provider industry. So I think around that time, we just had the deposit law changes, where your deposit would have to go into a third-party custodial scheme, and obviously be backed up with that with evidence in the form of a written report. So the burden of proof sort of moved onto the landlord's shoulders, and if they wanted to deduct any monies out of cleaning, damages, etc., that were created during the tenancy term, they would have to prove that in writing, essentially, to fairly deduct from the tenant's deposit, and obviously showcase why. I remember being a tenant just before that these software came out, and really still, obviously, the market was slow in the uptake of custodial schemes, but it was very much a kind of running joke that you'd lose 200 quid out your deposit straight away just for the landlord putting their hand in the pocket and saying, I'm buying cleaning materials and whatnot. Even if you did a professional clean, it didn't matter. Their opinion of professional clean was somewhat different. So it protects all parties involved when you have an inventory report done, obviously, and you're producing these reports for the adjudicator. So what happened back at that time is the industry of the outsourced inventory provider started to pick up, and there was a lot more demand for that service, because the letting agents who suddenly had to create all these long-winded, detailed professional reports didn't really have the time throughout their property management sort of day to do it. So enter in the outsourced inventory provider, and that industry grew pretty rapidly, and we were right there on the cusp of that to sort of provide them with the tools and the platform to not only produce those reports at scale in a far shorter amount of time with far less repetition and administration overhead, but sort of run their business as well in sort of an end-to-end management dashboard of scheduling and client communication and whatnot. So it was an interesting time to get into this market. And as Radweb, which is the company behind InventoryBase, we wanted really something to evolve into becoming a product company, because we were into software, obviously, and we were creating lots of great applications for various different companies around the world. And it became like a repeating joke that we would make millions of pounds for other people and provide them with great technology. And we gained the confidence by seeing what we did for other people and what they did with their business. We gained the confidence to sort of start our own, if you will, and transition to a pure software house. And software as a service was the up and coming sort of opportunity there.
So I'm fascinated though. Two lads at university just kind of fall upon inventories. What was it specifically that really caught your eye? That was a niche that you wanted to focus on. Was there a particular, was there a particular incident, experience?
Yeah, so it was actually someone on the board of the AIIC, the Association of Independent Inventory Providers at the time.
Yeah.
They were obviously their business was starting to flourish a little bit around that time. They were picking up a lot of work, and they needed a document management system. That was the basics of it. It just needed something so that the clients could log in and book with them, because they didn't want to be, obviously when you're out on the job, you can't pick up the phone as well. So, it was automating that end-to-end process of scheduling, taking bookings online into a calendar that you can fulfill that, and so without the back and forth emails trying to find a reasonable time. So it solved the problem back then of just managing bookings and facilitating bookings. And then obviously around the same time, interestingly enough, was the launch of the App Store by Apple. And we saw a couple of entries in the market for apps that created reports, and we thought we could do a better job. But not only that, we could combine it with the online platform solution, so that you had, and we were the first in the market to really do this, is to have a sort of web dashboard that you could do everything on in terms of editing reports, just like you would in Microsoft Word, or managing your day-to-day, as well as using an app out in the field that didn't require an internet connection, and you could get very click happy with and just get through and power through and create a report with embedded photography and photos and things like that.
Cool. And so I was just about to ask you, obviously, what are the different services and product lines that InventoryBase do? But as is always the case, Zoe got to it first. So big fan of yours by the looks of it here. Hi, Zoe. Great company, not just inventories though. HHSRS RA, Legionella RA. The list is long and glorious. Self-visits, what a masterstroke. You are going to have to explain all this, by the way.
Well, absolutely, yeah. Very surprising, actually. I haven't seen it.
Training Academy and CPD, user-friendly and fabulous support. Very happy. Well, you can't get a better start than that, can you? So,
thank you, Zoe, very much.
We have. Great. Thank you again, Zoe. Give us a bit of context about starting with I suppose, what you're best known for. What are the biggest product lines, and then we'll work down from there.
Sure, yeah. So, the headline at its core is that InventoryBase is a platform for property reporting. Now, like I said, we started off very much in a niche industry, and that's how we found our way into the property market. Is we worked with an inventory provider who, again, it wasn't lots of different reports. It was just very solely focused on inventories, check-ins, check-outs, and maybe some interim inspections. And we solved that problem very well. I mean, we cut the time immediately. We cut the time to produce a very professional, detailed property report in half. And so, people used to go out and either take notes on a pen and paper, or they used to sing into one of those talk boys, if you remember Home Alone 2. Or they would obviously take lots of photos and go back and then try and type everything up from memory and from those photos. And so we wanted to provide a platform that didn't change how they worked, but made them a little bit more efficient at the time of working. So we've got an online dashboard, obviously, that does the scheduling, the management, the production, the polishing, and all sorts of customization and features to produce and scale property reporting. But also then the app, whether you're into typing on an app, obviously, if you can text really quickly, then it's great for you. But if you think Google kind of knows what you're saying as you're typing. So we wanted to provide something like that, not really something that would require lots of drop downs or lots of repetition or clicking a lot of clicks. We wanted to do something that would be more natural. So we built a sort of dictionary auto text enabled text input that would suggest to you as you're typing, whether it was you're typing fair and suggesting fair wear and tear, or whether you were just typing shortcuts like the first letter of each word, FWT, for example. So naturally you could get very quick with typing just by typing acronyms and shortcuts, as people used to work anyway. But obviously back then they would leave the acronyms in their report and they would be subject to interpretation and have to have a glossary that go with it and things like that. Our app, swaps out when you type FWT, it swaps out for fair wear and tear. So it's, it gets very detailed there. Some people like speech to text where they can just talk into it and it's typing out for them. And interestingly, I had people that are in front of a large audience try to break it by doing a very, very bad Scottish accent, and it nailed it 100%. So I won't take credit for that. Obviously, that's a great team at Apple and Android that have provided that functionality, but it works. And then we found that people, as you get better and better at reporting and you want to zip around properties faster, you need a faster method, and there is no faster method than dictation. No. So we recognize that in the industry. We're still very much clued up on dictation, and what they would do is they would go out with an audio file, they'd go out with the camera, they take all their photos on their SLR or whatnot, and they'd like I said, have one of those talk boys to run around, those dictation devices to run around and sort of speak into, and then they would send that audio file, and they would upload their photos, if you will, or provide their photos and send the audio file, and someone, usually if it's an outsourced provider, would type those files up while they can then move on to the next property. So we realized that was a really great way of getting detailed reports, finished and completed faster at scale. Some people would come home and spend their whole night typing them up, which might take 3 to 5 hours typing up a half an hour audio. So we wanted to take that overhead away from them so they could just move on, free up their time to manage, to get more jobs done, to cover more ground. So we provided an outsourced pool of typists essentially around the world, minimum 2 years experience typing inventory reports for the industry. So that now via the app, you can record all your files and you can take all your photos, and then you can just hit a button and it goes off to a pool of typists to get typed up for you. That obviously had the benefit I described in terms of the inventory providers having less work on their hands and didn't have to type it up themselves, and able to scale by getting around. But also the photos element was a massive time savings. If you imagine, I don't know if you've ever been the subject to the victim of having to use Microsoft Word and trying to embed lots of high quality photos into it. Some of our clients take 1,500 photos. I mean, that's a bit ridiculous, but anywhere from 300 to 1,500 photos on a detailed report.
Yeah,
and, it's very, very tedious. And I remember sitting around the table with a rather large client in London of ours, and they were looking up scaling up their use of the software, and they said the boss turned around to one of the colleagues and said, "Well, how long are you spending per day? Coming back from going around and doing your inspections to how long, putting those on the computer, getting them into a report, and getting their report out." And they said, "Well, 4 or 5 hours a day." And the other colleague, 4 or 5 hours a day is 8 to 10 hours a day of people compiling these reports. And they'd been trialing the software for a while. And they said, "How long has it spent taking you now?" They said, 1.5 hours to 2 hours. It worked out on the spot that was a 70 grand a year saving, for them, for those two staff. And obviously they were looking at scaling this across.
Steve, are you able to? I mean, these are incredible figures, and of course, they all seems fairly obvious. But are you able to actually sit down with a prospective client when they come to you and work through these ROI kind of savings and everything else, or do they just come to you and say it's clear we're going to be saving enough time to do it? But I just wondered, are you able to quantify those ROIs ever around the client base?
Yeah, I mean, we typically say that, a report can take 2 or 3 hours to do with all the photos and the compiling and obviously typing up into Microsoft Word. And as you know, Microsoft Word doesn't scale easily when the document starts to get a bit long. So generally, the truth is, most people just realize how effective the savings is in terms of time. I do go through several iterations of figures depending on where your focus is, on what you want to do. It may just be that you're looking at scaling. It may just be that now suddenly your inspections need to be more regular. It may just be that, since the tenant fee ban, for example, we've seen a renewed focus on quality and detail of inventory reports because the landlord is suddenly realizing that it's something that they're now paying for. So provided by their agent, their provider, and they want to make sure that it's worth the money for them that they're spending, and they will cover them in the event of a dispute. And obviously that's what it's about. It's about reducing disputes. It's about safeguarding the tenants. It's about due diligence and compliance. The features around the software, the ancillary features, if you will, things like detailed audit trails, documented against every inspection, every property on your system, every user, every client. So we maintain a full audit historical log, if you will. It's time-stamped of everything that's happened. When a report was started, where it was started, when a photo was taken. Obviously, we geostamp and timestamp all the photography. So it all goes towards producing the evidence that essentially is a lock. It can't be disputed. And time stamping, obviously, when reports are complete, when signatures are attained, and where. And so that you have, in addition to then, when you share the report, you have the tenants who then open the report, and we track opens. We track that reports have actually been received, and when. Have they actually been opened and read? And if there were any comments or any issues with that report, they're all documented and they're all trailed. So it doesn't matter if it's even 10 years from now and there's suddenly an issue, going back, you'll have all of that information ready, available on a click for every property over multiple tenancies.
And has there ever been any research done in terms of how much it reduces disputes using systems like yours? Are you aware?
So it was an interesting one, because actually Scotland implemented the law, I think, a little bit later on, and they were at something like 16% disputes.
Yeah.
And then after implementing, sort of, actually getting inventories, done as a more proper part of the process, it reduced to around 2%. So the process there obviously made the whole thing reduce from 16% to 2%. Software obviously around that is going to provide the same, or if not even more benefit in terms of all the audit trails and everything like that. So it's very difficult to keep on top of everything else when you're doing your job, and even something as little as communicating effectively to all of the parties involved. That's something the software automates for you. So it's not only the time savings and obviously completing the reports and doing the actual on-site work, but it's all the time savings of administration and overhead and communication as well. That's all built into the software, and it naturally works and flows. And I think that's what, we saw Zoe's review there. That's what really we should shout more about, is everything else that we do for you, just like the transcription service and various other services that I'll get into as we go as well. That's part of the software and a part of the support, the professional support that we provide, and we've been recognized for that.
So let's talk about actually how it has changed over the years. How has InventoryBase grown and evolved then from the early?
Yes,
2012.
That's right. So we launched in 2012. That was we started developing in 2011. We launched in 2012, and that was, like I said, with a handful of customers who were the outsourced inventory providers. Because how we set it up is obviously inventory providers, clients being both landlords and letting agents, more predominantly letting agents, would be able to log into the software, and they'd obviously be on the receiving end of all the communications and the web reports and everything like that. So we actually gained popularity with property managers, both residential and commercial, pretty quickly, just through our customers, just through almost word of mouth, if you will. And so we wanted to evolve to meet the requirements of not only the professional inventory side of the market, but also the inspection side of the market. And what we learned quickly is the inspection side of the market is not standardized. It's very, from one person's inspection report to the next, there's not going to be many similarities. Some observations and some photos is probably as close as it gets. So we knew we had to evolve to provide a software that would provide the tools to customize, to tailor what you wanted within your templates, for example, so that when you gave a job to one of your property managers, it would be something that would be straightforward. They click into it and it's all there to fill in the blanks. It's all there to work through room by room, item by item, question by question, and provide the prompts to you. So we really got into the customization of the software. We're the most customizable software on the planet, I was going to say, in the market. Probably not far off on the planet. It's quite amazing what the work that we've done to allow you to change everything about the software. So it started off in 2014 when we were approached by a US company who really loved what we were doing in the UK, and they wanted to partner with us to take it to the US. Yeah. Now, InventoryBase wasn't the right brand at the time to launch into the US, because inventory meant something different. And really, I think it was the UK and Australia that were the only places that really had these tenant-led inventory, move in and move out reports at the time.
Okay.
We're still quite far behind, as were the rest of the world. So we rebranded to Property Inspect. We created a new brand, if you will, a sister brand called Property Inspect. And we launched in the States in 2014. And that was great. Unfortunately, our business partners there, one of them ended up getting headhunted and moved on. So we ended up buying the business back. But it was great in that in the meantime, we managed to meet so many good customers. We work with the likes of Airbnb for their global luxury resort inspections, where they do, between the Airbnb Plus program or onboarding of various global and remote resorts. We work with the likes of Amazon for facility management now, so managing their Seattle headquarters, make sure the hazards and cleaning issues are all taken care of on a daily basis to protect their 1,500 plus staff in the building. And that's obviously evolving as they go into new buildings and new neighborhoods. I think they have 18,000 properties across the world. Our software will be looking after. And we're even, we're actually piloting a program right now with the city of Chicago to solve homelessness, which is something we're proud of, because obviously with COVID and the increasing problem of evictions and homelessness, a lot of people are having the very good idea that these empty hotels and these empty resort accommodations are obviously sitting there and not being paid for, not earning any money. So what the government's doing is putting money in the pockets of these building owners and saying, look, we'll pay you to house homeless families, homeless individuals. But before they put those people there, they need to do their due diligence on those properties. And that's a combination of attended inspections as well as remote inspections where possible. And I'll touch on the remote inspections feature in a moment. So the US was a really nice place to launch. Obviously, it's a big animal. Every state feels like its own country. And we're still growing quite well there. We're actually now in over 40 countries with accounts.
You are not just another sort of software supplier. They're not another supplier in the industry then. What's staggering about that? What was that by the end of 2014-15? So within 3 years of growth, you've got international and continued.
US was the first one. South Africa actually was interesting. The second one, we launched in South Africa in 2016. We met a team there. So what we decided to do is how we scale is all of our engineering, all of our back office staff, I call them front office and back office, front office being the sales and marketing staff. So our back office staff are all centralized in our Portsmouth office. I'm fortunate enough to be able to look over to my left and see absolutely no one because they're all working from home at the moment, but they would be there in an ideal world. A couple of days a week we're back in now. But also what we did is we installed these hubs of sales and support personnel. That's how we look to evolve. So we've got a team in South Africa that look after the sales onboarding and support. We've got a team in Florida that look after sales and supporting and support of the US. And obviously, so we're sort of in 3 spots so that we're able to provide sort of around the clock support, in any time zone. And I still trying to jump out of the Australian ones all the time because they are a real.
They casually try and sell that to you as this really kitsch name, don't you? Follow the sun support, as it is. Right. And it doesn't feel like that, does it? When you wake up in the morning and Australia's just finishing, and then vice versa at the end of the night, and you never feel like you're ever getting started, do you? Really?
It was funny actually when we launched in the States. It was very much. I'd get home at 5 o'clock, and the West Coast would wake up and want to speak to us, and it was just carried on. But I was a workaholic, at least back in the day. It's nice to have a balance now that we've got the employees that I'm fortunate enough to be able to delegate all of my work to. Don't have to do anything anymore. But yeah, so that's how we grew. We launched in the US, we launched in South Africa, and through that South African hub allows us to sort of cover support for the Middle East. We've got companies in Dubai and the UAE, across Cyprus and Europe, and then it's growing all the time. I think the users are now across 54 countries, sort of handled from base accounts in 40 countries. And we're growing into Europe as well.
How do you grade? What are your KPIs in terms of clients? Is it offices, users? Give us an idea of that kind of across the board.
We really mainly count office accounts. And the funny thing about InventoryBase is that it could be an Amazon, one account that's using it on a global basis, an Airbnb, one account that's using it on a global basis, or it could be a Belvoir office, for example, like Zoe's office. And obviously we work with the Belvoir group, we work with many of the franchises, and that's really where I think from a franchise level or from a head office level, there's a lot of benefit from a management side in using InventoryBase as well, in terms of that data. Again, we record everything in terms of how long a property report takes to do, how long a property visit is done, how long the turnaround times are from when that report is delivered back to the customer, and all sorts of management intelligence that's obviously great for seeing how you're doing as a business. Financials as well. Obviously, I said that we work with inventory providers, and accounting is very much a big problem for them in terms of they bill obviously for their services. So we're very much geared up, I'd say 50-50 between the property management problem, which is managing inspections, managing reports end to end and all of that good stuff, versus the outsourced property service providers that do lots of different things. And the good thing about inventory providers as well is a lot of them are multi-talented. A lot of them, we call them the inventory entrepreneurs now, because they do lots of things. That some of them might do photography for Rightmove, some of them might do viewing, some of them do a few more reports than just the inventory. They might do Legionella risk assessments, things like that, which is exactly what we're trying to promote now with InventoryBase Academy, to give people more strings to their bow, if you will, and be able to sort of cover more services as an outsourced level, because I think that's really now, especially in light of COVID and furlough and job losses and things like that, I think it's going to become very much a more popular tool to people are switching on to focusing on their core profit making tasks and outsourcing the things that they can not do so well, but at least still make a margin on, right?
Well, certainly endorse that line of thought, and I think you're right. It's absolutely the case. So how do you see technology then developing at InventoryBase? How do you see it going?
Yeah, so we're obviously, as a company, we love to innovate, and this is why I think we focused on really building an in-house team. We have 12 full-time developers. They're all really great. The benefit of working in and living in Portsmouth is we have a local university here we have a great relationship with, and that's kind of how we evolved. This is our little secret, but I think a great bit of advice for everyone watching is, when you want to go out and find, and everyone, right, this is about prop tech, right? So everyone needs, and I'll argue that every business, regardless of what you do, should have some sort of hacker, some sort of programmer or a scripter or web designer, web developer, or whatever it is, someone techie to be in, because everyone has the need for at least marketing technology. Yeah. But that aside, so we grew our business and it was underpinned by that relationship with the university, by finding placement students who would come in for a year. Really, it was 15 to 16 months. I'm looking at one right now who's just joined us actually, and every year, and I went through this myself when I was in university, and James as well, we went into industry for a year, in our sandwich year, if you will, and then we went back to university, finished our placement, and then we fortunate enough to have a full-time job waiting for us, because with the person that we did our placement with, we followed the exact same model with our company, and we hired 1 or 2 students a year from the computer programming, from the computer science department in university, and we were able to then grow for one on cheap staff, but also very, very good, very forward-thinking staff, and that really kept injecting, young blood and innovation. It kept us fresh, and it kept us, forward-thinking by bringing these young minds and talents into the business. And a lot of them, more than half of all the people that we've ever taken on from university, are still here with us today. Going on 7 years. One, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, got headhunted to Facebook. Well, that's just the kind of people that we work with. I think, as being a programmer myself, I think one of the things that's helped us is in my being able to recruit programmers. And what I'm looking for is obviously a passion for programming, but you don't need to worry about what you're programming, because at the end of the day, this is all tech, it's all innovation. It doesn't matter what the application is. There's still a lot of challenges when it comes to, you know, the creativity part of it and the innovation part of it. So we're going to continue to innovate, obviously, as a service, just like we have been doing. For example, one of our more recent innovations is inventory-based work streams, as Zoe mentioned. So as I was getting into the fact that we're quite split between the customer bases, where it's the property managers, the landlords, and the service providers, we realized that more and more, especially throughout the summer, we were getting hounded on the phone. Can you please let me know someone in my area who's also using InventoryBase? I can plug them in and let them do some reports for me. And, you know, we started to feel uneasy about the ones that would come to mind are the ones that we talk to more regularly, and therefore there's an element of favoritism. We didn't want to be involved in that. So we kind of built what we call work streams as an innovative network, where you can say, okay, if I'm doing an inspection, I'll give it to Jill, and Jill will go and do that inspection. Or if I'm going to create an inspection and go off and do it myself, but actually this one, I'm going to do an inventory. We're not going to do it in-house. I'm going to offer it out to the network, and that's going to then advertise to all the local providers in that area of that property, not necessarily of the customer, but in the property, and alert them to then bid on that job. So it's a way of, you know, connecting directly to suppliers through the software without having to jump on, you know, a recruitment website or post out an ad or something like that and go through all of that, obviously, headache. In addition, you know, like I said, we're working with franchises, and I think franchises is a big path for us right now, big avenue to explore with what we're doing from the data side. So obviously, data intelligence is on everyone's mind at the moment, and you know, whether it's, you know, Power BI or Tableau or these things like that, we're seeing dashboards and seeing how you're really performing. And like you said, people should know what their KPIs are and their metrics are, and how those are changing from time to time. So we've always been, because we work with lots of large agencies, both on the letting side, larger customers, franchises, and also larger inventory providers who are looking at themselves franchising and scaling out nationwide. You know, we get to really innovate when it comes to scheduling and bookings related technology, as well as the data side of everything. So we're really excited about you know, what we're doing with that. Integrations, obviously, is an ongoing thing. We're integrating right now. I think there's about 7 different integrations in the works at the moment with various companies on a global level, and with work streams as well, where people are recognizing such a valuable service. And I'll touch more on work streams in a minute, but where people are searching, that's really seeing the benefit in that, and being able to connect to any supplier around the UK. We're having a lot of people interested in embedding that solution into their own software as well. You know, so some of the companies that we work with, you know, that we partner with, that are themselves, their customers are letting agents and their customers are landlords. Well, here's an instant out of the box solution to be able to book a supplier to go around and attend your property and do something, whether it's an inventory report, whether it's whatever service it is. And, you know, we've been very fortunate to work with a lot of the companies, you know, who are in that space and who do large scale nationwide property services. So we're really excited about how that will evolve across the market to not just property reports, but all facets of property management and property sales related services. I think one of the nice directions we're going in now is we've always been a lettings related, a property management related company for the rental side of the market. And a little while ago, actually, in Australia, it became quite popular to do pre-purchase inspections, and it's not so big over here yet. I mean, now that we've got the level 1 and level 2, you know, the RICS level 1 and level 2 home buyer, home condition reports, those are now, that's by bringing those out, they've enabled volume in that kind of market, because obviously before it was very detailed, very structural, and you know, you had to be, I think, charter status to be able to do those kind of level 4 reports. But the level 1s and 2s, you know, provide an assurance to the purchaser. They do their job, and I think they're becoming a bit more popular. So we're actually working with companies now to provide appraisal related reports and templates, as well as home buyer level 1 and level 2 reports and valuations, as well as EICR and gas safety and all sorts now. So it's really evolving, and this is really spurred on by the international market as well. But it's really spurring us on to broaden our horizons and being able to do lots of different types of property related forms, not just reports, but forms for capturing data and converting that into certificates and whatnot. And you know, evolve, that really takes us on to evolving in the industries as well. So, you know, we work with, it's been interesting with InventoryBase. Obviously the word inventory implies that we do inventory reports, but it doesn't speak volumes on what else we do. Obviously Property Inspect is a little bit more broad in scope, but it's amazing the kinds of companies who will come to us and they'll find where our technology fits into their business. Some examples of that are someone who inspects trains and they want to use software to, you know, inspect their train carriages and maintenance and cleaning and safeguarding and hazards and things like that. To someone who, now we've got a company now just recently come on board who manage clock towers and go and visit and inspect all the clock towers, including Big Ben and St. Paul's Cathedral and things like that. So it's really great to see, you know, how the software can fit into these other verticals and explore that.
Do you see those as an advantage or are they a distraction? Because, I mean, there's lots of businesses that get sidelined by that kind of approach, don't they, where they think this would be perfect fitting in there, and actually, you know, it tends to distract them from their core activity. You mentioned I guess this is where you were talking about earlier, the flexibility of the product does lend itself to do that then?
Well, the flexibility of everything about our business lends itself to do that. So, we didn't come into this business with an investor or a, you know, a float or anything like that. We came in bootstrapped. And so James and I, those websites where people were paying us 30,000, 40,000 pounds to produce, it was great pocket money at the time, but we didn't spend any of it. We put it all back into our business and we kept reinvesting our money, and essentially we took the money from over here and did some client work, and that would slow us down. And I think actually, you know, it has slowed down the growth. Originally in the first few years of InventoryBase, it was strangled by the requirement to keep building, obviously, and obviously evolving the software. But we essentially made the money to invest into the business on the side through projects. And as obviously over time that's scaled down as InventoryBase has gotten more and more profitable. But that allowed us really to keep that. James and I are, you know, the owners of the company, and we don't have shareholders. And so therefore, because not having shareholders, we're not being pushed to get to a particular core focus and stay there. We can be nimble, we can be agile, and really the background of us in terms of being Radweb and obviously working with lots of different companies, we've always been opportunistic in that approach, and we've remained agile for that reason, so that when, for example, when COVID hit, you know, we could adapt quickly, and we could adapt quickly by taking our eyes off the ball in terms of what we were doing here and just switching our focus. And so actually leading into the lockdown, one of actually the examples for that was the self-service inspections model that we came up with. So, you know, we knew that lockdown is obviously going to keep people locked down into their homes, unable to attend property visits, unable to attend inspections, and that caused its own challenges in that tenants' overdue inspections wouldn't get done, you know, tenant moves and inventories weren't getting done. So the self-service feature that we quite rapidly developed, I think in under 2 weeks we developed it and pushed it out, would allow a letting agent to issue a report to the tenant on the property, and they would then receive it as a template, like I said, with all the prompts that they just essentially answer some checklist questions and fill in some descriptions, observations, and take some photos or videos. And just by simply doing that, you could just make sure, you know, the tenant's keeping the property in good cleaning order. It's safeguarding as well. Is the tenant okay? You know, a lot of people aren't. So is the tenant okay? You know, and on the subject of safeguarding with children as well, you know, is the property safe and fit for human habitation and safeguarding for children as well. So it was just lots of benefits, obviously, for just keeping that momentum going, keeping eyes on your clients' assets, as they were obviously, you know, having their own. Everyone was having some sort of struggle, so at least that wasn't added stress by not attending and not having visibility of your properties and your assets. And so, interestingly, we've now, I think today, we just did a press release recently, we're up to September, we issued 20,000 self-service inspections to various tenants. So it proved that the feature was quickly adopted. It became a useful, valuable tool to people at that time. But we've actually learned that people have appreciated the feature so much that they're actually looking at reducing some of their attended inspections throughout the year to replace them with self-service and keep that as something, you know, in their tool set going forward.
And you did that within 2 weeks. That was a 2-week project there to roll out.
Yeah. And this goes back to the technology as well that we built and the way that we build. You know, the way that we build is we're very, very much focused on the technology being, I mean, people won't necessarily know what JavaScript means, but we're very much on modern tech. We're very much on desktop-like software in the browser. And the way that we code, very clean, and essentially we're like driving for other drivers. We're coding in a way where the next guy that plugs in, the next girl that plugs in, can just jump on and they'll know what they're doing because it's all done in a standard way. And you know, the standard.
That though, isn't it? That's that desktop on the cloud methodology. Because in the early days, some of the cloud applications was, of course, fantastically cloud accessible and everything else. Just how bitty they were to fill in, and the lack of data accuracy you would get off the back of that, and everything else. I think that's been one of the best things, to seeing that re-evolution, the reimagination of UI, of how it can still work on the cloud, has been one of the best things I've seen recently.
Yeah, I mean, that was my whole dissertation at university, actually, was how to make, you know, desktop software that you'd stick a CD in and it would be as responsive as a desktop software, how to make that in the web browser. And it was, you know, around the times where single page applications didn't really exist. They were just coming into their own. JavaScript was just starting to be used more than just for animation. And, you know, and the software sort of industry was evolving at a very rapid pace back then. And we were sort of riding that wave back then, which is where I think actually a lot of the, we were able to color a lot of customers impressed with that level of technology, so that they knew it was a quality product they were using. Rather than click and waiting 10 seconds for something to respond, it was instant feedback.
You mentioned tech earlier, so of course, say his name and he appears. Mr. Byfield's just popped up. Afternoon, chaps. Steve is one of the most tech-savvy guys I've met. Constant innovation, great business. You've got a lovely testimonial there. Thanks, Mr. Byfield there. InventoryBase is simple to use and intuitive. The best part is that it can be emailed to tenants and they can add their own comments prior to us completing the doc and sending to the landlord. The comments are still there when you do the move out. Couldn't be easier. That's from Sally Hubbard of Justin Lloyd. And then we've got a question for you here from Nick. He apologises, he missed the start of the webinar, so this question may have already been answered. It hasn't, I don't think, actually. If I have in-house inspection agents who undertake the reports and send the reports to the property manager to review and discuss with both landlord and tenants, can the system pick up and highlight changes from the previous report?
Yeah, so that's actually some of the benefits of our software that are just built in, and we don't. It's funny, over the years you forget some of these features that they're so basic and so you know, at the beginning of the software where we hang our hat on. But all these many years later and all these many features later, you forget the value of some of these earlier features that you developed. And that is, you know, if you're going out to do a report, the first report, of course, on InventoryBase is going to be a little bit more long-winded. You're going to obviously hopefully have a very close matching template. You might even have another property you've been to that's very similar in its layout to the property you're going to now. And so we knew that completing these reports from scratch would be quite long-winded. You'd have to get a lot of text in, obviously a lot of photos, and you're building a very detailed document that could be up to 100 pages long. A dissertation in itself, if you will, sometimes. And some of these providers really hung their hat on the level of detail they went into. So the ability to, once you've got that report in, and I'll come back to getting that report in and some of the benefits there, but once that report is in, every subsequent visit to the property starts from where you left off. So there is no need to, you know, revisit the template or go back to, you know, setting out the layout. InventoryBase will remember everything about that property from the last.
There's a full audit kind of channel throughout the software.
Yeah, there's like a change history, if you will, a bit like, you know, Dropbox keeps various versions of your document over time. It's the same with us. So no matter how, every visit to the property creates a new report, but the starting point is the previous report. So if I go in and do an inventory, it might be that a week later I'm doing the check-in and checking in a new tenant. Obviously, I've already done the inventory, but there might be a cleaner that's jumped in between that time, or there might be someone that's come in and done a bit of maintenance between that time. So really, when you come back in a week, you're just making a couple of little amendments. And therefore, when we do document those amendments in terms of, you can provide a changes only report. So if the tenant's already been sent the inventory, you can then provide them a supplementary report with just the 4 items that were changed, for example. And then in addition to that, when it actually eventually comes to the checkout, it will pull through the original inventory verbatim, and what you'll do again is update the report in line with the observations, how it's reflected now, and that will then automatically produce a comparison column. So you'll have your report saying, so you've got your items, your descriptions, your condition at check-in and your condition at checkout matched up side by side, so you can clearly see. And again, with the changes only report, you can just condense that down to just what has been modified from the move in to the move out stage. And really then it makes it so much easier on the reader to just scan down and see, well, this one was, you know, as check-in, as check-in, as check-in, or here we've got something that it's as check-in, it was scratched and marked, but it's also now got a, you know, a broken handle. And so it would say as check-in, but also now appended a broken handle. And even better than that, going forward then to, it might be that the new tenant, if you're really slick or a little bit rogue, I don't know which one is the thin line, you might get a tenant in an hour later after the last tenant moved in, or at least quite quickly within the last tenant moved in. And so therefore, again, you don't want to be doing an inventory or check-in report again. We'll just convert your checkout with all the same photos, if nothing obviously has been changed. Obviously they're timestamped, so it's evident that they are the same photos. But all the same photos, all the same text, and it's just starting off from where you left off. And you know, you can continue to leave that checkout open and make any modifications to it while you're in that, hopefully a lack of dispute stage, but it might be a dispute stage. And then, you know, let the new tenant move in with the assurance that they've got their whole sort of start of tenancy documented, or from the get-go. So it works like that as well for the inspections, when you just have, you know, previous inspection, current inspection sort of observations as well. So it's very much out of the box.
Cool. Well, I just want to whistle through these last, getting toward the end now, but I want to just understand from you, obviously it's becoming a lot more of a congested space. You've given an example just there, but give us some other ideas how you differentiate yourself from the competitors that are out there at the moment. Yeah,
so actually going back to the getting in of the inventory, the original inventory report. So, you know, you arrive at a property for the first time. We wanted to make it as quick as possible to get on with the job you need to get on with now. All right. So what we'd see a lot over time is that we'd see, you know, it may be that as an inventory provider or even a letting agent doing a checkout, I may not have the original document. You know, it may be that I was given it by my landlord and they had a different provider or a different agent at the time, so they've given me the inventory to when this tenant moved in. It may be that, you know, that the software, it was done with another software or another provider, or it was Microsoft Word or whatever back then. And so in order to get the benefit of the software in terms of having that side-by-side comparison, you need the original report in the software, right? So if the first time you're using InventoryBase and you're visiting the property, and the first visit to the property is for a checkout, you have that obviously disconnect with regards to that comparison. So what we did is we provided a tool that you could just import your report. Now, we obviously knew that we had thousands of I wouldn't say thousands, hundreds of transcription staff around the world that were able to convert your audio to a written report. So we trained up those guys to essentially copy and paste, not too much training required, but copy and paste your document in sort of behind the scenes, you know, hopefully within a few hours, and get that report into the software so you're ready to use it when it comes to that checkout. But then we took it a step further, because human error, you know, around the world, different speeds of internet and whatnot. We wanted to really have a more instantaneous ability to import reports. So we developed what we call our extractor, which will read a PDF, interpret all of the items, the descriptions, the conditions, the photos, and import all of that into the InventoryBase sort of editor, ready to then close off and then create, you know, duplicate into producing the checkout. So that saved people obviously a lot of time, and was able to then give them the result that they were looking for, which is that side-by-side comparison, without having to do too much admin of getting those original reports in, or having to stick with old methods when they had old reports. So it was a nice way of transitioning. And we learned that obviously that became a great onboarding tool for us. when someone would come from either an old competitor, a legacy software, or come from, you know, having historical Microsoft Word reports in the tens of thousands, we were able to provide a sort of a nice transition to our software by just dumping all those reports in and letting them queue themselves up and find their way into the software for use in the future. So yeah, where was I going next?
One of the things you were talking about earlier, I think you just mentioned as well, is talk to us. I mean, this strikes me as being unique. What's the Inventory Academy? What's the InventoryBase Academy about?
Oh, the Academy. Okay, so like I said, with regards to the inventory provider market, you know, we obviously know the likes of the AIC, and we had, I think, just before Property Mark rebranded, we had the APIP as well, the Association of Property Inventory Providers. And you know, we were really gung ho, ready to work with them, and those were essentially membership organisations that, if you're an inventory provider, you want to signpost that you're taken a standards-based approach. You've taken, you know, you're part of something that you're accountable to, and that provided a bit of a trust mark for them. There wasn't really anything else in the industry to provide that level of trust mark for outsourced inventory providers. But the voice wasn't very loud, let's say, coming from those organizations. It wasn't really very resourced. It wasn't very active, and we took it upon ourselves, as we felt we were the market leader, or becoming at least the market leader in the inventory reporting space, that we would take it upon ourselves to also be the voice for the industry. So InventoryBase Academy was really born out of a necessity to endorse a standards-based approach to reporting, to endorse best practice, to try and standardize the level of detail that you would expect to see within an inventory, and what that would cover, because from one, you know, area of the country to the next, it was very different. Prices were different, deliverables were different, and we wanted to really, and it's very much an industry where there's low barriers to entry, so anyone can really join, right? And we knew that the industry needed more resource. It's still, actually, right now, today, even though there's thousands of inventory clerks out there, still isn't enough. And it's a service that will continue to grow in popularity as an outsourced model. But also, we see, since the tenant fee ban, that people like letting agents are bringing it in-house as well, some of them, in terms of having a full-time employed inventory providers. And for those people like Zoe there that mentioned that they can have the capacity in-house to do those reports, InventoryBase Academy provides all those people, you know, and people looking to change industries as well, with the knowledge and guidance and practical support to learn that trade, to hone their craft, and to become capable professional inventory reporting staff. And so we partnered with the CPD trading, you know, the CPD accreditation, to get 10 hours of CPD by that service. So it's CPD accredited online courses. I think they contribute about 10 hours towards your CPD. And then we provided a whole bunch of other courses. So from, I think, GDPR for inventory clerks, obviously, back in May 2018, when that all changed, and what letting agents and inventory clerks should do about that. Safeguarding child awareness was another course we just partnered with the NSPCC to do. NSPCC were looking for ways, and if anyone else has any ideas as well about ways to get the NSPCC involved more in the property industry, they are looking for ways to partner up with people. And we stepped up, and we provided, you know, courses on, you know, because our customers are going into properties all the time, the signs to look out for, you know, abuse and neglect of children, obviously something close to our heart as family people. And even getting into more of the advanced things like dictation, because I'm the king of bad examples when it comes to demoing iron software, when, you know, good condition is about as technical as I get. But some of these guys are getting really technical with their language, and you can see, you know, I think one of our colleagues, Sean, she walks around and she can dictate into a microphone, and she would say something that I would take 30 words to say in about 7 words. So it's a skill in itself. I think one of the hardest things about inventory reporting is knowing what something is when you look at it. And so we provide a lot of guidance there and a lot of support to become, you know, a more capable and a more succinct reporter as well.
Sounds exceptional. We're going to have to wrap it up now, but I just wanted to get an overview. It's fantastic. I encourage everybody to go and have a look, obviously, on your landing page on the website. God, we've heard from enough of them today, or just commenting in terms of all 5-star reviews. There, you've been
Thank you everyone for that. Really appreciate it.
Well, don't worry, when you're allowed to buy them a pint, you can buy them a pint back. But you've been kind enough to give our Kerfuffle members a bit of an offer there. Do you want to just explain what that's about?
Yeah, absolutely. So as with any software, the hardest part is getting started. So we are here. We have a great team. We have 20 people employed in house to help. At least 10 of them are going to be around. 8 of them rather are going to be around to help you on the phones and on email. So for Kerfuffle members that have registered with Kerfuffle, we'll give you 3 months for the price of one. So we'll really help you get all your templates set up, get everything set up for one single payment, and you won't have to pay anything again till month 4. In addition to that, we're giving 4 months off an 18-month contract. So you can choose at any time in your trial to jump onto the 18-month deal, and we'll give you some time off for that as well.
Double bubble, that's the sort of deal we like. Steve, we could talk about this for hours by the looks of it.
I definitely could.
I'd love to get a few of your clients on a future one, and we'll talk to them about kind of the real world challenges they've had, because obviously that you've got a multi-layered business there. It sounds absolutely superb. Thanks, Steve, for joining us today, and keep in touch with us.
Thanks, Simon. Great to speak to you. And thank you, everyone. Take care.